Welcome you all for this COVID Pulse Pact, day 7 of the series 2. And thank you and for their continued support and joining these sessions. And today is the day 7, August 30th, Monday. So we are having this basics and initiation of ventilation by Dr. Siva, which has been moderated by Dr. Pragadesh and Dr. Manda. So far, we have been covered the COVID introduction and pediatric case management and therapeutic recommendations, multi-system inflammatory syndrome in children and newborn, how to identify a sick child, oxygen therapy with devices, and how intubating or airway management, followed by non-invasive ventilation, the last lecture on Friday. So now we are moving to the other next, that is a little bit of, I won't say advanced, it's still we are considering the basics of ventilation and how to set up a ventilator is being done by today's top lecture. And this lecture is going on till 15th, which ends with simulation-based case scenario, putting it all together. And we are planning to Zoom that as well. So I'm really happy to introduce today's moderators. Dr. Pragadish P. is Associate Professor and is taking in charge of the Department of Pediatrics at Andaman Nicobar Island Institute of Medical Sciences, Port Blair. And he's completed his MBBS from medicine from Pondicherry Institute of Medical Sciences, DCH and MD Pediatrics from CMC Vellore. And he completed the pediatric critical fellowship from the IOP College of Pediatric Critical Care. And he's worked with us at CMC in pediatric ICU as a faculty for about 5 years. And he's instrumental in many things, contributor to chapters and IOP textbooks, AIC protocol in infectious disease. And he's been IAPHA and PALS instructor as well. He's got special interests, as you can see, and when we started this PACT course with for the acute encephalitic syndrome in Gorakhpur division, Uttar Pradesh, he has contributed and is supported. And thank you, Pragadish, and welcome you for moderating this session. And we do have another moderator, Dr. Mandar Jamdar, and he's a consultant intensivist, pediatric intensivist in the pediatric ICU, SRCC Children's Hospital, Mumbai. And he completed his MD-PITS from Wadia Children's, and he did his fellowship in pediatric critical care, both of the IAP College of Pediatric Critical Care and the postdoctoral fellowship of CMC Vellore. He worked with us for during this fellowship, and we're really happy to have Mandar. And we know him as a very good, excellent fellow when he was with us. And his past, he worked in global hospitals as specialist in the pediatric liver critical care. And I'm happy to welcome you, Mandar. And both Pragadish and Mandar will moderate today's session. And over to the moderators.
Very good afternoon, everyone. At the outset, I thank Eboo sir for giving me the opportunity to moderate this session. So as sir said, when we started this PACT course to address the lacunae of knowledge and skills for the peripheral hospitals, we started, I think, in 2018, I think. So when we started, we found what exactly they lacked. They have the knowledge, they have the skills, but they have this, what to say, the dilemma or the fear to start the ventilation or how to set the ventilator settings. So today we will discuss the basics of mechanical ventilation, which at the primary level we can initiate for a sick child. And this will be the 7th lecture in the PACT series for pediatric COVID care training. So without wasting much of time, I invite Dr. Shivavyasham, who's an assistant professor in pediatric ICU, Medical College, Vellore. Shivavyasham did DCH and MD Pediatrics in CMC Vellore. So during the PG days itself, he was a very calm, studious student. And I had opportunity to work with him for nearly a year in the pediatric ICU. So I invite Dr. Shiva to take over and start the presentation.
So thank you, Eboo sir and Pragadish sir, for the introduction. So today, without any wasting of time, I will just talk about the thing. So today we are going to talk about the basics of the mechanical ventilation, especially in the primary care healthcare setup or in the secondary level, what all we can do. So I will just start with a case scenario. So he's a 5-year-old Master C weighing 20 kilos. So admitted with a COVID pneumonia. He's on NIV on 12/8 with 100% of FiO2. On that ventilator settings, he's breathing at 60 per minute. He's having subcostal retractions, intercostal retractions. He's grunting. His saturation is only 86%. He also had compensated shock and is low sensorium. So anyone want to comment in the chat box, what is the physiological status? We have discussed in the previous classes. So what is the physiological status and what will be your intervention? So the physiological status, this child respiratory rate is 60 for a 5-year-old is very high, and saturation was 86% on 100% of FiO2, and his sensorium is also low. So that is like, it's like a respiratory failure. And what intervention you have to do? You have to intubate the child. So I'm just going to talk about the basics of mechanical ventilation. So first thing I want everyone to make clear that ventilation initiation, it's not like a rocket science. We no need to worry because so many mathematical calculation, nothing. So it's just simple if we follow some basic principles and basic physiology. So that's what I'm going to cover. So the summary, introduction, basic terminologies, what are the equipment in our ICU, and what are the ventilator modes you can choose, and how to set up a ventilator, and troubleshooting. So these are the things I'm going to discuss. And what are the more common indications why we ventilate any child? Either it's due to respiratory failure, due to inadequate oxygenation or ventilation, or like cardiac insufficiency or shock, to increase the oxygen consumption and to eliminate the work of breathing. Sometimes for neuroprotection, you will intubate for children with status epilepticus and who needs protection of the airway. And sometimes we will intubate for post-procedural things, like post-operative children, we will be ventilating. So these are the various indications why we will ventilate any child. So what is our goal by ventilating any child? So you have to get enough oxygen in and you have to get enough carbon dioxide out. Okay. And we have to minimize the adverse effects. Mainly, you have to protect the healthy lung and you have to support the injured lung and you have to maximize the patient comfort. So this is what the main goals of mechanical ventilation. So I just want to touch upon the basic physiologies. So you can see here, this is the mechanics of spontaneous breathing. What will happen during the inspiration? There will be contraction of your intercostal muscles, your diaphragm will contract. So your thoracic cavity will expand so that inside the pressure will be low. Always we know in the physics, the pressure will always go from higher pressure to lower pressure. So when you are spontaneously breathing, as your chest expands, your intrathoracic pressure will be less and outside pressure is high. So the gas will come inside. During the expiration, as diaphragm relaxes, it will go up and your thoracic cavity pressure will increase and the exhalation will happen. This is the normal process. So what are these ventilators, especially during the polio pandemic and all during the 19th century, they use this. This is called as negative pressure ventilation. Okay, this is mainly used especially those who are not able to breathe, like they are paralyzed, especially in the polio, sometimes due to some poisonings like barbiturates or tuberculin and all. So you can see here there is a shield here. So inside it will have a subatmospheric negative pressure and it will create that negative pressure ventilation. What are the advantages of it? The upper airway can be maintained. There is no ET tube there. Patients can talk and eat. But there are some disadvantages, like there is decreased accessibility to the patient. They can also develop decreased venous return and cardiac output. They can develop tank shock. So most of the negative pressure ventilators nowadays, they're replaced by positive pressure ventilators. So we already discussed the physics. Pressure is always go from higher pressure to lower pressure. So what we are going to do here in positive pressure ventilation, we are creating the higher pressure at the level of the mouth or the airway through the ventilator. And that will go during the inspiration, and the expiration, we are releasing the valve there so that the outside pressure will be low and it will automatically relax. So inspiration and expiration. So just I want to tell this like in simple terms. So lung ventilator unit can be thought like a tube. You can see here a tube inside a bottle with two balloons. So what you want to do, if you want to blow air inside it, you have to overcome this tube resistance, and also you have to overcome whatever the minimal pressure is there already in the balloons. So that's what in the medical terms you will say the flow and resistance of the ET tube and the airways you have to overcome. And this, suppose it's like a alveoli, like a balloon, it has some compliance. How is the volume and compliance you have to overcome, plus what is the baseline pressure in that balloon itself, that also you have to overcome. So these all things including that is called as inflation pressure. Okay, so the flow into resistance, that is the tube, volume by compliance plus baseline pressure. So that's what the inflation pressure, that much amount of pressure you needed to inflate that balloon, the alveoli. Okay, so this is the determinants, and it's only possible to set 2 out of 3 variables. Okay, pressure is important because it will help as already I mentioned, high pressure to low pressure it will go. So how much pressure is needed, that is important, and how much quantity of air is going inside, that will tell your volume, and how fast it is going. Okay, that will determine your volume flow. So remaining all are dependent of variables. Okay, so you can see here the basic physiology. The positive pressure is pumping, the lungs are expanding, and the valve reopen, and the expiration will happen. So there are different generations of ventilators were there in 1990s to 1970s, usually volume control ventilation. Later patient triggered inspiration things came. Later the microprocessor controllers were there between 1980s to 1990s. And plethora, so many ventilator modes are there, smart ventilation mode, so many are there in the future. So what this is, I think so some of you might be knowing, these are the Siemens 300 ventilator, which is the old one. You can see here there is no graphics or no scalars or no loops. So it's just the numbers, you have to keep it here. And what are the ventilators there in our ICU? You can see here Mackay ventilator, Servo I, Infant, Universal Basic is there. So depending on what is the age group you're ventilating. If it's more predominantly infant, 2 to 350 ml, you can go for Servo I. Adult, it's 100 to 4000 ml, you can see, and Servo S is 100 to 2000 ml. So these are some of the Mackay ventilator. As we use predominantly Mackay ventilator, so I will just show all the pictures and the modes in the Mackay ventilator, and it's all according to the comfort of the treating physician and the local availability. And these are some of the Hamilton 5 ventilator, and this is a Drager ventilator with a Vita 4 edition. And this is one of the Monal T60. It's like a portable ventilator for transport and all. It's very useful. And the last one is the HFOV, which is the care infusion thing. So the basic components of mechanical ventilator, we know ventilator is nothing less than a machine. Okay, so it needs some power and all. So there are so many things like sources. It needs a power to work. Okay, it needs control of gas delivery because you're blending oxygen and medical air. So it needs the control of gas delivery, some sensors it used to have, so monitoring and safety features. So just remember, ventilator is like a robot. What we set, it will deliver, and it has a foolproof technologies. So we have to utilize it carefully. So this is the basic ventilator circuit. You can see here, the ventilator is pumping the breath, the gas will flow, inspiratory valve, it has a humidifier. Through that inspiratory limb, the child's lung will expand. During the expiration, the gas will go through the expiratory limb, expiratory valve filter, and it's a waste gas. Okay, so I will just show you one demo how you can see here the oxygen and the medical air was connected, and power button is at the back side. So she switched on the power button. So it's getting switched on. You can see the Mackay name there. So she's connecting the humidifier, the other thing. If any previous patient data you want to keep it, you can keep it, otherwise. So humidifier is connected to the ventilator. You can see here. And from the humidifier, the inspiratory limb is coming. This is the expiratory valve port where the expiratory limb is connected, and both are connected through the Y piece, Y connector. And this will go to the patient. Okay. There are some sensors also there for humidifier sensor, temperature sensors are there, which you will connect. So once we are ready, so you can do the patient circuit test. So it will ask, do you really want? Yes. So it will start running automatically. So it says connect patient circuit and block YPs. So that was done. So you wait for the order. It's still running. Patient circuit test run. So this circuit test is very, very important, especially. So it says unblock YPs. So you unblock and again do it. This circuit test is very, very important because after connecting, I will let you know in the troubleshooting thing. So do you want to compensate for the leak? Yes. Circuit test passed. Okay. So that's how we will connect the oxygen and the medical air switching on and connecting the inspiratory limb, expiratory limb, and the patient circuit test. So once we do that, we have to select which mode, adult mode or infant mode. As I said, infant mode is mainly suitable between 0.5 to 30 kilos and adult mode between 10 to 250 kilos still. But minimal tidal volume in the adult mode is only 100 ml. So if it's an infant, better to use an infant mode. So you have to press there. Then you have to choose which type. Is it an invasive or non-invasive type? Okay. So once you choose that, you will see this is an infant mode and it's invasive. So you can see here in the left corner, it's showing an infant. And if you want to change between the invasive to non-invasive ventilation, the ventilator must be written to the standby screen. Okay, by pressing the power button in the lower left hand corner. You can see here lower left hand corner power button is there. That pressing that you can change to invasive to non-invasive. So there are so much of nomenclature which is there, which is used in mechanical ventilation. So just remember the four things: pressure control above PEEP, PEEP, rate, FiO2. So we will discuss in detail what is that. So what is PEEP? It is positive end expiratory pressure. Means what is the pressure which is present in the alveoli at the end of the expiration. So that is your PEEP. So, and pressure control above PEEP. So after that, the ventilator will deliver with certain pressure. Okay, it has a limit. So how much pressure it is giving, the maximum, that is your peak inspiratory pressure. So the difference between your peak inspiratory pressure and your PEEP is your pressure control above PEEP, which that's what in Mackie and all you will see. So this is the PEEP, is the what is the end at the end of the expiration, what is the pressure in the alveoli to maintain, to prevent the alveoli from de-recruitment and all. And the what is the above pressure control above PEEP. Okay, that is the thing. So and more common things which you have to know, okay, for any setting the ventilator is, as ventilation is a machine, you have to tell the ventilator when to trigger, okay, and how much pressure you can give or volume you can give maximum. Okay, limit should be there, and when it has to change over, cycling should be done from inspiration to expiration. So the trigger, so what causes the breath to begin? So it can be machine controlled. The ventilator will trigger regular breaths at a frequency which depends on the set rate, or it is patient assisted, like patient has started triggering, then ventilator will take over in some settings. So that is whether it's a patient triggered, you can see a negative deflection in the pressure scalar. If it's a machine triggered, you won't be seeing anything. And how much limit it can be. So that can be either pressure limit or flow limit. And when it is cycling from inspiration to expiration, that is also depending on your eye time. So these are the three variables: trigger, limit, cycling. You can see here in the spontaneous breathing, the inspiration towards the negative side, as we already mentioned, expiration towards the positive side. You can see here there is no negative deflection. So this is the mechanical breath. Ventilator has given the breath. Here you have seen the negative breath was started. After that, when there is some breath was delivered. So this is assisted breath. This is patient triggered. Okay, this is important. What triggers the breath, how much limit you're giving, and when it is cycling from inspiration to expiration. And the phases of breath is also important, because we talked about trigger limit cycling. So we know inspiration and expiration will be there. So inspiratory time plus expiratory time is your one breath cycle. So I will just tell you with an example. So what is breath cycle? Suppose a child you kept with a breaths of 30 breaths per minute. What does it mean? Each breath, it will give over 2 seconds. Okay, in those 2 seconds, so how much inspiratory time you want? Okay, usually IE ratio, we will put 1:2, means 1/3 will be your inspiration. Out of 2 seconds, 1/3 will be your inspiration. That is 0.66 seconds. The remaining expiration time is 1.34 seconds. Okay, this depending on what condition you are ventilating, you have to modify. Suppose in the children with ARDS, with bad lungs, to maintain adequate oxygenation, you may have to give longer I time. Okay, and suppose in the children, especially with wheezing and asthma, where you want shorter inspiratory time and longer expiratory time, you may have to do it in the opposite way. Okay, so depending on what condition you are intubating and ventilating, so your I time will see. So you can see in the page 2, here you can see TI, you can see 0.67 seconds. You can see here the rate is set at 30 per minute and the breath cycle is 2 seconds. So your I time is, so depending on that, as I said, each breath cycle is 2 seconds. So out of that, your inspiration is 1:2. So that is 1/3 of your 2 seconds is your inspiration. That is 0.67 seconds is your I time. Okay. And what is your main goals of mechanical ventilation? Why you're ventilating? Mainly for the oxygenation and ventilation. So goal may be, depending on whether it's a moderate ARDS or severe ARDS, your goal will be there, saturation more than 92% or more than 88%, and your PCO2 and pH, because pH is the most important determinant, and disease specific, for what condition we intubated the child. So next is what mode you have to select. So there is no funda like which mode you have to select and all. It's like depends on the comfort of the physician who is using, and commonly whatever they are using in the center, and it's also depends on what condition you are ventilating the child. So there are different modes are there. You can see in Mackay ventilator, volume control, pressure support, CPAP, SIMV, volume control, pressure support. So many things are there. I will just start with the basic things. So volume ventilation and pressure ventilation. What is the difference? Just remember volume ventilation. So here volume is constant and pressure will vary with patient's lung compliance. Okay, and inspiratory flow will be constant. And pressure ventilation, your pressure is constant, volume will vary with patient's lung compliance. So you can see here, a child, you can see here so much of leak is there. Your inspiratory tidal volume is 450, but expiratory is only 98, means so much of leak is there in the circuit. So in this type of circuit, so what mode you will choose, pressure control or volume control? See, this child is on volume control mode. Is it a correct mode? Because this whatever volume 400 ml is your you set as a ventilator, child is getting only 98 ml. Okay, remaining everything is getting leaked. We don't know where it is leaking, either in the circuit or child might have some other condition. So why it is leaking, we have to see. Okay, and what mode? Volume control, if you put, it's not serving the purpose. So anytime any child with leak, always try to put on pressure control mode. So what are the advantages of each mode? Volume control mode, as I already mentioned, guaranteed tidal volume, minute volume, and will be stable. Okay, the only disadvantage is, as I'm already mentioned, in presence of leak, the mean airway pressure is unstable, and also sometimes with insufficient flow, they may have patient ventilator dysynchrony, and especially with the poorer lung units and poor compliance lung units, the mean airway pressure will be lower. So always remember, if you're ventilating a child with a normal lungs, like post-op child, you can put on volume control mode. Otherwise, if the child is having some diseased lung with poor compliance, try to put on pressure control. So what is the advantage of pressure control? It will increase the mean airway pressure. It increase the duration of your alveolar recruitment, and the work of breathing and the patient comfort may be improved. But it has a disadvantages, like volume is not constant, it is variable. They can have volumetroma also. So you can see here some of the scalas. This is the pressure control and this is the volume control. You can see here pressure is it's constant here after certain time, whereas its pressure raised slowly, and decelerating flow will be there in the pressure control in the flow scalar, whereas in the volume control it's a constant flow But in recent ventilators, we have an option to change it to decelerating flow. So what are the basic modes of ventilator? I'm not going to go in detail. I will just tell about what are the basic principles of it. So controlled mandatory ventilation, synchronized intermittent mandatory ventilation, which is commonly used, and assist control. Okay, what is controlled mandatory ventilation? Name itself, it says. So it delivers whatever you set, it will deliver. Okay, in between, if patient breathes or not, it won't bother anything. Whatever you have set, if you set 20 breaths, it will deliver 20 breaths. The patient cannot generate any spontaneous breaths, volumes, or flow rates in this mode. So which all children it was suitable? It is suitable those who are not having any breathing efforts like GBS, neuroparalytic syndrome, or under heavy sedation, and especially these children needs heavy sedation and muscle relaxation. Because if child starts breathing, what will happen? There will be asynchrony again between the machine breaths and the patient breaths. So this we won't use usually controlled mandatory ventilation. The common mode which we use is synchronized intermittent mandatory ventilation. As name says, it's intermittent mandatory ventilation. So it has an intermittent SIMV period. During the time, if patient try to breathe, it will synchronize and it will deliver the breath. It will wait for 90% of the time. If child is not breathing, it will deliver its breath. Okay. In the spontaneous period, if patient is trying to breathe, it has a sufficient mode to assist. If it's not there, if it's a pure SIMV pressure control mode, the patient can generate his own flows. Okay. So, but can you support the spontaneous period also? Yes. The spontaneous breaths also can be supported by using pressure support ventilation. Okay. So the pressure support ventilation is only applicable on spontaneous breaths. And this is termed by flow cycling, especially when the flow drops to specific fraction of its maximum, it will cycle to expiration. So you can see here pressure support CPAP 12/6 in 40, the pressure support above PEEP, and FiO2, the backup ventilation. So you can combine these two things. Okay, the SIMV, whatever we have already described, and pressure support ventilation. SIMV, it will synchronize during the SIMV period, and it will decrease the asynchrony. That is the main thing. And during the spontaneous period, if child is breathing, it will allow the patients to generate the flow. But if you want to support that one also, so that is called as SIMV with pressure support. You can support the in-between breath also. Okay, so you can see here, this is the machine breath which was given by the SIMV, and this is the spontaneous breath which is child is taking in between. That can be also supported by using your SIMV pressure control or volume control with pressure support. The pressure support is mainly for your spontaneous breath. How much support you are giving, that depending on your thing, you can set the pressure support level. Usually you will keep it little lower than the pressure control level. Okay, so this is the common mode which we will see. So this how it looks. Suppose this is the SIMV volume control with pressure support. You can see here tidal volume rate, PEEP. So this is the SIMV breath. You can see here the pressure difference. And this is the spontaneous breath, which is pressure supported. You can see. So this is the SIMV breath and pressure support breath. So what is assist control? So assist control, the patient cannot generate spontaneous volumes or flow rates. You can see here mandatory breaths, whatever you have kept the rate and flow, it will deliver. But in between, if patient tries to breathe, it will support fully. Okay, so it's almost similar. You can see here there is no change between the patient triggered breath or it's a machine breath. There is not much of no difference at all. So minimum breath rate is guaranteed. So, okay, you can see it's almost same. That's the only difference between assist control. But what is the problem here? If whatever the patient triggers, everything is going to be supported, means they can have asynchrony, they can have hyperventilation. Okay, they can have respiratory alkalosis, breath stacking can happen. So you can just remember all these three things like a pull-ups. So controlled breath is like you're not doing any work. Ventilator is only doing all the work. Okay, assist breath is like you're just starting some work, ventilator full take over and it will do full work. Okay, so that is like assist breath. Supported breath is you have to able to do some or most work. Ventilator will assist only. Ventilator will support only to finish the work. That is your pressure support. So just remember this: control breath, no work. Ventilator only fully do. Assist, you just start, ventilator will take over. Support, you have to do some work, ventilator will support. Okay, so this is the basic things. And This one I just touched upon it, because what is the main difference between conventional ventilation and the HFOV? HFOV is mainly used for the severe ARDS. It's one of like low tidal volume you're giving. It's like lung protective strategies, and where the oxygenation and the ventilation is independent, and you can have inspiration and expiration, both are separately there. So it's beyond the scope of this class. So I'm not talking about HFOV. So our child, 5-year-old, weighing 20 kilos, who was admitted with COVID pneumonia, we have intubated because he had respiratory failure, 5-size tube, 14 centimeters. You started on pressure control with pressure support mode. So what will be our initial settings? So as we already told, pressure control above PEEP you have to set, PEEP you have to set, rate, FiO2 and I time. So how to set that? So let's make a breath. That's what we have to make by putting tidal volume, FiO2, rate, pressure, PEEP, everything. So how to make it? So there is no magical number or magic figure that this is the thing you have to follow. So just see pressure limited. If you are putting pressure control mode, you set pressure control above PEEP depending on the lung compliance and pathology. Before intubation, you might have bagged the child. You might be knowing how is, by the time, by bagging itself, you know how is the lung compliance, and set some ventilator settings like 10 to 12 of pressure control above PEEP. See how is the chest rise. Is the chest rise adequate or not? How is the minute ventilation? Okay, so always depending on that only you see. And volume control is also same thing. Start with 6 to 8 ml per kg tidal volume, and then you see how is it. Okay, there is no fixed number. Okay, it's always dynamic. And rate depending on the physiological rate of the child, and PEEP depending on what condition you're ventilating, and the I time I already mentioned. So PEEP, you just remember, if it's a normal lungs, you can set like post-op child, or it's a neuroprotective child, you can put on PEEP of 5 to 6. But if you're intubating for ARDS, so the lower PEEP is also not good and the higher PEEP is also not good. You can see here, you always try to ventilate in the functional residual capacity zone. Okay, the lower the tidal volume, also the pulmonary vascular resistance will go up. Higher also the PVR will grow up. So always optimum PEEP is always better to keep. And the optimum PEEP, how you will know? By keeping at that thing, the child will be having the tidal volume will be good, there will be no hemodynamic compromise, and the oxygenation is good. Okay, so that's how the PEEP you will select depending on the condition of the child. And the rate I already mentioned, depending on the physiological rate, less than 1 year 25 to 30, 1 to 5 years 20 to 25, 5 to 12 years 15 to 20. So you can see this is how the ventilator looks like once you select the mode and set the initial ventilator. You can see here pressure control above PEEP 12, PEEP of 7 you have seen, rate of 25, FiO2 of 60. Okay, always start FiO2 of 100. Okay, because while in transfer and all, there might be some de-recruitment. Start with 100% FiO2 and then come down. Okay, so after that, you can press here in the left top corner to go to the second page where you will see the additional settings. Okay, once you press that, you will see this page. Okay, the breath, the rate, IE ratio you can see here, the I time you can see here. The I time we have discussed in detail. The I time is mainly, if you are increasing the I time, you are increasing your area under the curve, you are increasing your mean airway pressure. By that, you are increasing your oxygenation. So remember that. And what is trigger? So the trigger is the one which we set. So by default, the trigger is like a sensed flow trigger we will use. Pressure trigger is also this. In MACK, actually, it's a dual thing. If you turn anti-clockwise, once it's in the negative, it will come like this, -1, -2, that is -2 pressure. What is trigger means? We already told, when the ventilator has to deliver the breath. Okay, so what is flow 3, flow 4 means? It is the percentage. Okay, by turning the knob clockwise, it increases the flow trigger sensitivity. So maximum of 10 it will make, and it is easier for the patient to initiate a breath. Okay, what is the problem by putting the high trigger flow? Okay, if the child, if you have ventilator circuit with secretions, that also will be triggered. So auto triggering is one of the common problem which can happen. Okay, and turning the anti-clockwise, it reduces the flow trigger sensitivity, and it makes it harder for the patient to generate the flow which is needed to initiate the breath. Okay, common is the flow trigger. Pressure trigger we won't use because they have to create a negative pressure to trigger the breath. So commonly used is the flow trigger. Start depending on the condition of the child again. So once you have set all the parameters, accept. to confirm, and okay to confirm compliance and compensation. Because if you don't accept whatever the changes you made, everything will be lost. And the next important thing is alarm profile. Okay, we already told ventilator, it has a microprocessor technology, everything. It will detect some things and it will tell us. So what it will detect? So you can see in the right top corner, alarm profile is there. Press it there. So then you will open this screen. You have the pressure upper limit is there. Minute volume. What is the lower minute tidal volume you want? Minute volume or upper minute volume, how much you want to set, you can put that. Respiratory rate, what is the lower and upper, you can set that. Peep, and expiratory pressure is your peep, how much you want the lower limit to be and upper limit to be, you can put. And sound level, how much volume of the alarm, sound level of the alarm, that also you can set. So after doing this, so what all we have done, you have intubated the child, you set the pressure control above peep. Okay, you set the rate physiological, peep depending on the condition, FiO2 of 100%. Just remember these 4 things at least. Okay, pressure control above peep, rate, FiO2 and peep. Eye time and all, if you are interested, you can just get the things. And so what you have to monitor, so you have set the ventilator, what are the things? First thing is clinically look at the child. How is the chest rise and movement? How is the bilateral air entry? What is the saturation of the child? And what is the tidal volume it is generating? Minute ventilation is important. Okay, first look clinically. Okay, if everything is good, then it's okay. After 30 minutes, do an arterial gas. Okay, so why? Mainly to make sure all the pH, PCO2 and PaO2 are in the normal range. This we will discuss in detail in the arterial ABG interpretation. So, and always remember, don't try to target always normal numbers, especially in ARDS with COVID pneumonia with severe ARDS, because lung protective strategies, permissive hypoxemia and permissive hypercapnia. So don't always target normal numbers, especially in the ARDS children. So what happened to our child? We started on the settings, pressure control above PEEP of 12, PEEP of 7, rate of 25, FiO2 of 60% with eye time of 0.6 seconds. His heart rate is 130 minute, PP is 90/60, saturation 92, CRT 2 seconds. You have done a gas after 30 minutes. So pH of 7.33, PCO2 35, PaO2 of 60. You can see OI is 18. Okay, and PF ratio is 100. So this child is in, the patient is in ARDS. So what we have to do to improve that? So oxygenation, what you can do, you can increase your FiO2. Okay, you can increase your tidal volume, especially the PEEP you can increase, and eye time, as I mentioned, to increase the area under the curve, and it will improve the oxygenation. So eye time can be increased, and you have to find out what is the reason why after doing all these things also still child is not oxygenation, is not good. Why is it? There is any air leak, anything? You have to get an X-ray done. Okay, or if the X-ray is showing worsening, you may have to increase your PEEP further. I told no optimum PEEP you have to target. The ventilation, what all things you can do? So ventilation is depends on your respiratory rate and tidal volume, that is your minute ventilation. So if the rate is low, try to increase your rate or increase your tidal volume. See if there is any ET secretions or any block. Okay, try to clear those secretions. See if there is any leak in the circuit. So these are the main things which you have to see. So our child continues, child weighing 20 kg admitted with COVID pneumonia. So these are the settings. You have slowly increased the PEEP 7 to 8 to 9 and FiO2 from 60 to 80%, and eye time also you increase because oxygenation is an issue here, and your saturation was 96 to 98%. So as I mentioned, you can see here, by increasing your mean eye time, you're increasing your area under the curve and you're increasing your mean airway pressure. That's how the oxygenation also will improve. CO2 out is mainly by increasing your respiratory rate and tidal volume. And there is this concept of MAP and recruitment. You can see here the serial CT scans during the, as airway pressure increases, the recruitment of the dorsal lungs and all is much better. You can see here. The CO2 clearance mainly depends on your alveolar ventilation, the rate and the tidal volume. And sometimes gas trapping can occur, especially in the children with asthma if you're ventilating. So you have to be careful at the time. Okay, so you may have to increase the expiratory time, you have to decrease the rate in those conditions if you are having gas trapping. So now you have set the ventilator. So what you have to do? We will get so many troubles in between, the alarms will become, you have to fix it. So how you are going to fix it? So the troubleshooting is very, very important. So what happens? Child suddenly desaturated on ventilator. What is the common thing? It's a dope. Displacement is the tube is in the correct position in the trachea or in the right side or in the left mainstem bronchus, or is it displaced? Or is there any obstruction of the tube? Okay, or is there any pneumothorax? Or is it any equipment failure? Okay, these are the 4 things. Everyone, please remember, any child suddenly desaturated on ventilator. So what you have to do, you have to immediately take 2 bags. By that, you're eliminating your equipment failure. See how is the chest raise and all. So any desaturation, put FiO2 of 100%, chest moving or not. If chest is not moving, manually ventilate the child. If it's easily to ventilate, it might be a ventilator problem. If it's not easy to ventilate, you have to see whether it's a ETT problem or patient problem or thing. If chest is moving, you see what is the reason. Okay, is there any worsening of the pulmonary edema? Why? Okay, so these are the things you have to see. Dope, please remember: displacement, obstruction, pneumothorax, and equipment failure. So this is the basic algorithm. You can see whatever I discussed, everything is concised and given here. What are the indications for ventilation? What are the steps of RSI? How you will confirm the tube position? What will be your initial ventilator settings? I'm again reiterating, there is no magical number depending on the age and what condition you are intubating. And what are the adjustments after that you have to see clinically first and then do the ABG. And if there is any oxygenation or ventilation issues, how to correct that. And dope. Okay, so ventilation is not only have advantages, it has its own disadvantages. Like it can cause biochemical injuries and biophysical injuries. It can have ventilator associated lung injury, it can have airway complications, it can have ventilator associated pneumonia, and especially with the high PEEP and all, they can have decreased RV filling and hypotension. And volutrauma, barotrauma, and oxygen inflammation because of so many release of cytokines, they can have inflammatory or oxygen toxicity. Biotrauma is also a possibility. Okay, so ventilation, pros is not, cons is also there. So you have to be carefully ventilating any child. So coming to the alarms. So alarms are mainly set to monitor the patient's interaction with the ventilator. So there are some alarms like pressure alarms, volume alarms. I already showed you the alarm profile. I'm showing it again. So once you press here, alarm profile, you will come to this pressure, minute ventilation, respiratory rate, and expiratory pressure. So when do you want to get alerted? So case by case, you have to see, and you only have to set it. The treating physician has to set the alarm profile. So what is it here? You can see the minute ventilation, minute volume is low. You can see here there is full of leak is there. So what is it? It's like a low minute volume alarm. Usually it is caused by any disconnection of the patient from the ventilator. Okay, or is there any leaks in the circuit? So what you have to do, you have to connect to the test lung. Okay, and see if still leak persists. If still leak means there is somewhere problem in the ventilatory circuit. Okay, and meanwhile you have to bag the child, and especially you have to see, evaluate if child is on cuff tube, see how is the cuff, and reinflate if needed. Check the cuff pressure and reinflate. What is the problem here in this mode? You can see here the patient set rate is 25, but it is breathing at 57. Okay, so that is like high respiratory rate. That might be because child might be anxious, pain, or hypoxia is also might be one of the reason, or child might be having secretions in the ET tube or in the airway. So this high respiratory rate needs adequate sedation, and you have to look for the cause. Once you have noticed the cause, child might be hypoxic or child might be having secretions, clear those secretions and all, this will resolve. Okay. What is the problem here? Again, the pressure is low. So low pressure alarm, again, like a low volume alarm, you have to see for any leak, you have to see for the cuff and reinflate if needed. You can see here, what is it showing? Regulation pressure limited. Okay, and here also pressure is high. So what does it mean? It's a high pressure alarm. Okay, it can be due to patient might be biting the ET tube, or there is some mucus plug in the ETT, or there is some blockage in the circuit. Okay, it's not only patient related, only ET tube related. It can be sometimes the disease also might be worsening. Sometimes the compliance of the lung might be poor, like in ARDS on pulmonary edema. So what you have to do, you may have to go upon your settings. You may have, sometimes if child is biting and struggling with the ventilator, you may have to go upon the sedation. Okay, whenever the high pressure alarm goes, you think about it. and accidental extubation. So this is the one of the quality indicators. So we always have to protect the tube, whatever happens. If sometimes, if accidental, if it comes out, what you have to do, always these bags should be there at your bedside. Okay, ambu bag, like self-inflating bag or flow inflating bag, it should be there, and you have to manually ventilate the child. Okay, and you have to call for help. What happens if suddenly if power goes on? Okay, so there might be a battery backup time depending on your ventilator. Okay, if suppose if a servo I ventilator which we use commonly, it has at least 3 hours backup if you have using 6 batteries, and 3 hours per battery it will take recharge time. So you have to see those things also. And this silence your mobile phone and all you can do in the library, but not in ICU. Okay, never hit the silence button. Okay, never shut the alarms off. Sometimes we can shut during the ET suction for about 10 seconds, but other than that, usually don't shut off the alarms. Okay, always address why the alarm is there. And I want to conclude with this thing, CRM. This is the crisis resource management principles, which we adapted from the airway. So what is the things, airway crew management, and also this is very important. See, these principles are especially important when we are in the resuscitation phase, in emergency or in the ICU. So we have to call for help early. You might be alone. Okay, you can call for help wherever you're working. You can call someone in you can call CMC, or you can call anyone for help. What can be done? You can anticipate and plan. You can have to know your environment. Suppose you're posted in the COVID ward, suddenly you have to know where is your cart trolley and all. You have to know all the information. You have to mobilize your resources. You have to communicate, distribute the workload. So crisis resource management principles are very, very important. So I want to end here, but I want to keep it interactive. They can unmute. Hello, sir, they can unmute.
Yes, they can.
So
there are some questions in the chat that probably we can address later with Pragadesh and Mandar. And now you wanted to have a case discussion. Yes, they can unmute and discuss, please.
Okay. So I think PGs or someone, whoever volunteered, they can just take up this. It's whatever which we discussed now only. It's just reiterating again. So it's a 6-year-old child weighing 25 kgs, diagnosed with COVID pneumonia, was initially on high flow nasal cannula, but his SF ratio is worsened from 300 to 200. You started on NIV, but after 1 hour, you noted his oxygenation worsened and sensorium worsened, and was intubated with 5.5. This is a typical physiologically difficult airway like hypoxia. So after intubation, which mode you will prefer? Anyone?
So pressure control SIMV.
Yeah, these lungs are bad. So yes, SIMV pressure control with pressure support. Okay, what will be your initial setting of ventilator in this child? There is no magic number, just whatever we discussed only. How much you want to start with?
Effort will be 100, sir. Keep at 100.
Okay.
And on bagging we can take and see how the patient lung is, and approximately we'll keep around some 7 to 8 feet can be kept.
Yeah, very good. And how much rate you want to keep? Is a 6-year-old?
It is 25, 6-year-old should be around 18 to 20 rate is fine, sir.
Okay, good. So pressure control 12, PEEP of 8, rate of 20. See, and again, I'm telling this is not a fixed number. Okay, you have to see dynamically. Okay, and after connecting to the ventilator, what you will observe? Anyone?
We can look for minute ventilation and tidal volume, how it is generating, and because if it is 25 kg, so we need to see approx how much tidal volume is generating on the pressure support what we kept, pressure control what we kept.
Yeah, before that you can see clinically how is the chest raise, saturation, then as you said tidal volume and saturation. Okay, so
is there any other mode you can choose, Siva? SIMV pressure control is preferred.
We can choose for pre-RVC also, sir. Pressure regulated volume control. I didn't discuss here because
yes, that's fine. That is all. But people, those who are familiar with whatever the mode, here we discussed the basic mode, so that's what is preferred. That yes.
RVC is like it will adjust the pressure from breath to breath, And depending on the patient's airway resistant and respiratory system compliance changes, it will deliver the set tidal volume.
Any other advantages you would have this pressure control, pressure support, SIMV?
Mainly helps in the recruitment and the other things. What means?
Okay, there's a decelerating flow pattern.
Yes,
Okay, that's fine.
yeah.
Yeah, sure.
So after connecting the ventilator, you notice child is desaturated, saturation of 86, PaO2 of 60. Even though chest raise is adequate and bilateral equal, tidal volume is 180 is getting. You have done a gas, PaO2 is low 60 with OI of 18 on these settings. So you can see the X-ray also. So which parameter in ventilator would you like to change? Anyone? So you can see adequate tidal volume is getting, chest raise is okay, but child is still having desaturation. Yeah, someone answered PEEP. Okay, good. Yeah, so child is getting adequate tidal volume. So it means the disease lung process is worsening. So that it's not an optimum PEEP wherever you're giving. So you have to increase the PEEP and you have to see how is it. So you have increased the PEEP and saturation improved. So what other parameters or maneuvers can be done to improve the oxygenation? What other things can be done to improve oxygenation in this child? Anyone? Can see something. Increase the TI. Yeah, very good. So as we mentioned, the increasing the I time will increase your area under curve and increase your mean airway pressure. And neuromuscular blocker initiation and early proning also will help. So after 6 hours, the staff nurse called sudden desaturation. So what you want to do? This is the common thing.
So there is a question Manivachagan has put in between. How do you decide how much PEEP to increase?
So the PEEP, whether to how much to increase, there is no number again. So you just, if the PEEP isn't 8 here, I will make PEEP of 10 and I will see how is the minute ventilation delivering. Is there any improvement in the saturation and the child is hemodynamically stable or not? These all things I will keep in mind. If with increasing the PEEP of 10, if it's okay and the PaO2 is also improved and saturation is improved, I will continue that. Okay, there is something known as incremental PEEP is there, decremental PEEP is there. And I think it's beyond this lecture. That's when tomorrow class the AM is going to talk. So
yeah.
that's why.
But any number you will look at it in the tidal volume or something like that, or
yeah, I will look into the tidal volume whether it's improving or not. So, and
sure.
I will at the same time saturation of the things.
Yes.
What intervention you want to do? Dope to be ruled out. So the other one is a Missy child for 10-year-old, 40 kilos. Missy was on initially on NIV.
So Siva, in this the first case, can you summarize what you just said, the case scenario and what?
So this is the child with a COVID pneumonia. Initially was on NIV ventilated. So initially we started with the ventilator settings of pressure control above PEEP. There is again I am reiterating no number. Magic number. You just depending on the patient's age and the condition, you set something and just see how is the clinically the child, how is the chest raise and all. And after connecting to the ventilator also the child desaturated. So then you are thinking the X-ray was also showing the worsening of the lung. So you have to increase the PEEP at that point of time. And what are the things to improve the oxygenation here? The I time can be increased because it will increase your area under the curve and MAP will be increased. And other adjunct maneuvers like neuromuscular blockers and early proning, everything can be done.
Sure.
Yeah. And suppose this is another child, the common thing related to the COVID is a Missy, which we are seeing is with the child with a cardiogenic shock. Okay, but his shock was worsened, gallop is there, you can see tachycardia, his hypotensive shock, CRT is prolonged, his breathing at 50, saturation was 90% on NIV. You're planning to intubate this child. So what will you consider while intubating this child? What is this called? Previous also we discussed, this is a physiologically difficult airway because child is having hypoxia, hypotension. Okay, if you do a gas, child might be having metabolic acidosis also. Okay. And after intubation, which mode of ventilation you will prefer? Again here, depend SIMV, pressure control, pressure support, or PRVC if you have. And what will be your initial setting? Anyone? So the initial setting again here, there is nothing, any magic figure. You have to start with pressure control 10 to 12, PEEP of 8 because these are thinking of pulmonary edema and all. and rate of 20 and FiO2 of 100%. So what you will see again, chest raise, tidal volume and saturation. So this is the initial X-ray. You can see here the ET tube in position and bilateral like a pulmonary edema. So next day morning, the child hemodynamics improved, only small dose adrenaline. These are the ventilatory settings. You have done the gas, PaO2 is 260. And this is the repeat X-ray. So which parameter helped in improvement of this child? So it is a high PEEP. Okay, so by giving the high PEEP, okay, you are decreasing the left ventricular afterload. Also, it will improve your cardiac output, and it also helps in the pulmonary edema. And what parameter in ventilator would you like to change here? By looking at the gas, X-ray, the child is on 12/8 and rate of 20, 60% FiO2. Which parameter you want to change? Anything you want to change, or you want to leave it like that? So as you see, it's a ventilation is a dynamic process. Okay, so this 12/8 PEEP is there. So when lungs are improved, your oxygenation is 260. You don't want PaO2 of 260 and all. You can come down on your PEEP and your FiO2. So what all we have covered? We have covered about the basic terminologies, basic ventilatory equipment in PICU, and how to choose a ventilator mode, and basic ventilatory settings, how to set up a ventilator and troubleshoot. So always remember, we are not machines, we are humans. So we should always, whatever the machine is doing, we should not leave it. Okay, we should interpret that and we should act accordingly. Okay, and always teamwork will help. Thank you.
Thank you, Shiva. It was an extensive presentation on basics of ventilation. You have kept it very simple. Now we can take up the questions. What is the difference between assist control mode and SIMB pressure support mode?
So yeah, assist control, as I already told, the machine already, whatever the set rate it will deliver. If patient is trying to breathe in between, it will support fully. Okay, there won't be any difference. Okay, mandatory breaths and spontaneous breaths, it will be almost, it is same. Okay, SIMB and pressure support. So SIMB, as I already mentioned, the synchronized time, in that if the child tries to breathe, it will synchronize. Otherwise, it will deliver one breath. In the spontaneous period, if the child is try to take a breath, it can support. That support, we can set how much pressure to support. Okay, suppose 10, 11, that we can support that spontaneous breath. So that is the difference between SIMB and pressure support. And assist control breaths, it's not like a synchronized breath.
Yeah, exactly as Dr. Shiva said. In assist control mode, you will be keeping one parameter to control the pressure. In SIMB pressure support mode, you are going to keep two parameters. One is for the ventilator breath or the synchronized breath. The other one is for the pressure support. So in SIMB pressure support, within the time cycle, if the patient breathes, the machine is going to synchronize and deliver the ventilator breath with your pressure control above 30. Whereas if it breathes after that cycle, it will be supported with the pressure support parameter. Whereas assist control, if you keep 20, it will deliver 20, but patient is breathing extra 40, the 40 also will be supported equally by the ventilator. That is the difference between the assist control and the SIMB PS mode. The second question is with the case we discussed, COVID with pneumonia. Instead of starting the respiratory rate at physiological rate for the age, isn't it better to start at supraphysiological rate, low compliant lung, the time constant would be low, and hence physiological respiratory rate may not be sufficient. And once adequate oxygenation achieved, we can come down on the respiratory rate, come on this. Okay, actually today's class is mainly to address the basics of ventilation, how we will put on the ventilator and what are all the initial settings we will put. For the ARDS ventilation, we will be discussing in detail by expert tomorrow. So coming to the question, yes, for the ARDS, we follow the low tidal volume strategy. If you keep a low tidal volume and a normal rate, you are going to hypoventilate the patient, which will lead to respiratory acidosis, hypercapnia, and respiratory acidosis. So better to start on the higher rate, low tidal volume, maintaining the minute ventilation, which will be helping in preventing the hypercapnia and the respiratory acidosis. We will be discussing in detail tomorrow. clears the query, then we will move to the next question. Okay, the next question is time constant in ARDS, BPD, MAS, and TA to be set. So the time constant is nothing but the time taken by the lung to fill the alveoli or exhale the alveoli 63% of the gas. Either to 63% of the gas to fill the alveoli, how much time it takes, or to exhale it, how much time it takes. So the concept is simple. What is happening to the compliance? What is happening to the resistance? If you have a predominant compliance issued lung, then the time constant will decrease. Is it easy? It is easy to fill a small alveoli. If we have a predominant airway issue problem, the time constant is going to increase. So in a condition where we have a increased time constant, we need to give an increased E time, especially when in asthma and other settings. Where in case of ARDS, the time constant will be low because it is predominantly problem with the compliance of the lung. Dr. Shiva,
Yes, sir.
the benefit of the audience, we will just highlight few points of your presentation.
Yes, sir.
When we
There
went for
is-
the
Sorry to interrupt. There is one more question in the chat box, the last question. Before connecting to a ventilator, what are the pre-checks we need to do?
So I think the pre-use checks, mainly we will measure for any, like it has the pre-use checks. Okay, in that pre-use check itself, it will measure the internal, any technical, how is the function, any leakage, how are the safety valves, battery module, circuit compliance, everything like combined, it will do pre-use checklist. And apart from that, you can do patient circuit test also.
Yeah, so it is set with the ventilator. Before the ventilator, when we switch it on, so we have like a battery of pre-check tests which the ventilator does on its own. As he said, about the circuit, about the leak, about the pressure, about the FAO to how much it is delivered, all these things will be checked by the internal thing. Whenever something fails, it highlights it and then we can address it. Shiva, so as we said earlier, when we went for the PAC course training in Gorakhpur, the common question when we asked them to what is the lack in putting the patient on ventilator, they refer all the patient. The first thing they ask is what mode to select. I know you have explained it in detail. Can you again highlight it? How do we select the mode when we need patient?
Common thing what you have to show is whether what is the treating physician, what you are familiar with, that is very, very important. Okay, so whether it's pressure control mode, volume control mode, whatever, and according to the patient's condition. Okay, for what condition you are ventilating, is it like a post-operative child, is it like for cardiac problem, or for some lung pathology, or for some neuroprotection, or if it's like a ARDS. Okay, depending on what condition and all, you will select the mode.
Yeah, exactly. So the mode we select depending upon what we are confident with. And one more thing is different ventilators have different terminologies for modes. So we need to get familiar with the ventilator which we use. Okay. And then whichever we are comfortable, pressure control or volume control, whichever we are comfortable with, we can start the patient on. Okay, after putting the patient on SIMV pressure control, how to decide the initial setting? That is what the major doubt. What number I need to select?
So again, as I said, there is no magic number. It's all depends on your, what is the condition again. You're intubated the child and what is the age of the child. Is it for the ARDS or lung problem or neuroprotection and all. So, and especially post intubation, you might be back the child. So at that time itself, you might have got a clue how is the compliance of the child. Okay, so depending on that, you put the FAO to start with 100%, respiratory rate start with the physiological rate, PEEP depending on the condition. If it's like a normal lung, start with 5 PEEP or 6 PEEP. If it's a ARDS lung, you have to see. And other thing is pressure control above PEEP. You after setting, you have to see how is the chest raise. Is it adequate chest raise or no? If there is less chest raise, then it indicates you may have giving less pressure. You may have to increase the pressure or volume. Okay. And if it's moving so much also, that is also a problem. So always it should be adequate chest raise and adequate tidal volume and minute ventilation, and monitor for the saturation at the same time. And then you fine tune the settings.
Yes, you're right. So the initial setting, we need to ask ourselves why we are ventilating this patient. What is the problem exactly? So if before ventilation, before intubation itself, we know, okay, this patient I'm intubating because for the lung problem. So the pressure requirement might be more than what is needed. If a patient we are ventilating for a neuroprotection, the pressure requirement may not be that high. And the second thing is, as I said, before intubation, we have an X-ray, and while bagging, we will know how bad is the lung, and depending upon that, we can start the initial setting. And as he said, for fine tuning, after putting the patient on the ventilator, we will see whether we are adequately ventilating the patient. We should not underventilate as well as overventilate. We will see the tidal volume, we will see the chest rise, minute ventilation, and then adjust.
Yeah,
Other
you're
question
correct.
they
He highlighted that in his presentation as well. So looking at the patient, we are doing this ventilation, it's for the patients. So as Pragdish was mentioning, the conditions with which you are intubating and putting on a mechanical ventilator is very, very, very important. So you may need to oxygenate or hypercarbia, or sometimes your lungs are normal. You are protecting your airways because of your disordered control of breathing, or protecting the airways due to some other reason. So everything has to be considered. And this also that's Manimi was like pre-check request. Not only in the ventilator, I would do a pre-check request in the patient as well before connecting to the ventilator. Over to you guys.
The other question they were asking us is, okay, we have put the patient on this ventilator setting. Can we keep the same setting till we extubate?
Yeah, so we can't keep the same ventilatory settings, sir. We have to change because it's a dynamic process. As we know, if it's suppose pneumonia, that might be or ARDS, that alveoli might be recruited and the disease pathology might be becoming better, or it might be worse also the other way. So we have to need close monitoring. How is the compliance, tidal volume? You may have to do a gas and see how is it, and depending on that, if it is improving in the next 24 hours, then I will try to decrease the ventilatory settings. But if it's worsening and all, then we may have to optimize the settings again. So there is no like we have to set and we can just go. We have to just keep on seeing the patient. And
yes, so as I put in, we can't keep the same thing till the patient is getting extubate, because we are dealing with a dynamic condition. That means it changes minute to minute. So we need to closely monitor the patient, closely monitor the ventilator settings, means what is the tidal volume delivered, minute ventilation, what is happening to the compliance, aided by the saturation, ABG, X-ray. We need to adjust the ventilator settings. Okay. Now, how to adjust the ventilator setting to optimize the oxygenation and optimize the ventilation.
so mainly for the oxygenation, as I mentioned, you try to increase on your if the lung worsening and all, you may have to increase your PEP, positive end expiratory pressure. You may have to go up on your FiO2, and you may have to increase your I time, because that will increase your mean airway pressure. And the other maneuvers, like if it's like ARDS, starting a paralytic agent or by proning. And the ventilation, mainly it depends on your minute ventilation, your respiratory rate and the tidal volume. So you have to see, is there any problem there, is there any leak or anything is there. If anything is there, leak like that, you have to address that. And the other thing is increase, if still that ventilator is issue, you may have to go up on your tidal volume, on your pressure control above PEEP, or your respiratory rate. Okay, and oxygenation also, if after doing everything your oxygenation is still bad, you may have to do an ultrasound or you may have to do an X-ray to see if there is any air leak.
Yes, so as you clearly put, so for improving the oxygenation, so we will be optimizing the map, that is the area and the curve. By improving, first we will rule out whether the patient is adequately ventilated or not. So we'll rule out the hypotension, hypoventilation, then optimize the peak, high time, and the oxygen FiO2. Okay, and for ventilation, it is the respiratory rate and the tidal volume, and then block any tube obstruction is there, we will clear, and then that will improve the ventilation. Anything else you want to add, Dr. Mandar?
Yeah, very well presented, Shiva. I think it was a very basic and very nice presentation. As we discussed, which mode you choose and whatever numbers you set, that is not like anything which is fixed. What is most important is to look at the patient and then to decide about the necessary changes which we are supposed to do. As there are no fixed numbers, no fixed modes also, It varies patient to patient depending on the clinical situation. The clinical bedside monitoring is what we all should focus and to achieve basically a successful ventilation. The one experience I would like to share here is what I had during my training. Like you showed that Monarty 60 transport ventilator, we have JR circuit also during transport. But whenever you are transporting a ventilated patient, it is very, very important to have your AMBU bag with you, because there are two types of bag. One is self-inflating and other is flow inflating. And if you have any issues with your oxygen cylinder, if the flow stops, your JR is of no use. You will be in a big trouble. So it is very, very important to have a AMBU bag, though it is not related to ventilation. I just wanted to emphasize this point over here. So AMBU bag is your friend. Even if your oxygen cylinder was vacant, you can still pack the child. So that can be life-saving when you are having a bad lung. So that one thing I feel it is very important and you should emphasize. That's it.
There is one more question by Dr. Mani. We'll address that. So I just wanted to ask you, Siva and others, what about analgesia and sedation and synchrony and asynchrony in this intuition ventilation, please? A little bit, can we discuss that?
Yes, sir. So the sedation and analgesia, again, it will come down to the what condition again we are intubated, ventilating the child. So suppose if you are ventilating for any child like with pulmonary hypertension issue, so you may have to sedate them or may have to paralyze also. But other, and especially neuroprotection children and all those children, which we may have to keep them calm at least for 24-48 hours, we may have to give adequate sedation at that point of time. But on some conditions like in bronchiolitis or in some acidotic children like DK and all, where we may not reach the much of levels by ventilating, so we may allow them to breathe. So at that time the sedation might be minimal. Pragadish sir,
Yeah, as we need to balance between the patient ventilation asynchrony and then the side effects of the ventilation, means like side effects of the sedation what we are going to give. So we need to give optimal sedation neuromuscular blockade if ever needed to make sure the asynchrony part is less.
the child was intubated for is a 4-year-old 35 kg.
So the thing is, it is for the ideal body weight. The tidal volume we decide based on the ideal body weight. So the 4 years old child, the ideal body weight for the 4 years old child will be around 16 kgs. So based on that, we will calculate the tidal volume and depending upon the what pathology we are intubating.
Those who have having experience in some ventilation in the secondary hospitals, your experience troubleshooting, you can please share. So many people, those who are in the secondary, all Pragadesh, Mandar and Siva, they will be ventilating both newborn as well as newborn. They will be ventilating both newborn and children, pediatrics. So they may be wondering to ask you guys, is there any major difference in ventilating a newborn infant and older children?
So basically the disease pathology we ventilate is slightly different in the newborns and the bigger children's. So in newborn, the major cause for the intubation is either it is island membrane disease or meconium aspiration syndrome, or if the child is having apnea, septic shock, these are the things. So one thing is, though the child has HMD and a bad lung, the pressure requirement may not be very high as compared to the pediatric population. That is one thing I want to stress in this thing. And second thing is, whatever the lung pathology we deal with newborns, quite often they develop pulmonary hypertension, like meconium aspiration syndrome. Quite often they develop pulmonary aspiration. The third is whenever we ventilate a newborn baby, we will be very cautious to titrate down the oxygen because in preterm babies, quite often we see apnea of prematurity. Sorry, retinopathy of prematurity. Sorry. So these are the common things which we find different in the pediatric and the newborn ventilation.
Not much experience in neonatal ventilation, but I think their sedation policy also differs. But they don't heavily sedate their babies as do we in our PICU. They
Yeah,
allow
that is
them to
also the
they allow them to breathe. That is one difference with what I have seen.
Sir, any
Yeah.
experience in using the CV200 ventilator, sir? That is what the PM cares they are giving to all machine hospitals. I
No, we
don't know
don't.
that if anyone has any experience, they can share. That is in the mission
200.
hospitals they are giving. Yeah, CV200 that they are giving. I don't know.
Dr. Vandana has posted the assist control can be used. No, commonly we don't use assist control in newborn. We go with SIMB pressure support.
Okay, so this objective of this today's class is mainly on basics of ventilation. So it's some we may think intensive care is everything about ventilation. It's not only that; it's more than that we have. And everybody wants to or get, as Pragadesh was saying, because we had that experience of going to the peripheries and setting up, and they are getting afraid or to set up a ventilator because there are lots of modes and knobs. So as emphasized in the whole lecture and the discussion, it's all about the patient condition, okay, and about the equipment which you have. Get familiarized with that, each mode, and try to fine tune whatever necessary as we discussed. That the basic concepts were put today. The basic mode of pressure control, pressure support, SIME, and the initial settings. So that's the take-home message here mainly. And some troubleshootings, as they were mentioning, if there is oxygenation issue, what we should do, ventilation issue, what we should do. And if there is a sudden acute crisis of desaturation, don't ever forget the mnemonic of DOPE. And patient asynchrony also causes the ventilator-induced lung injury. That's what I asked the question about the necessity of sedation and analgesia. That also has to be fine balanced, not too much and not too little. Not only that, and there are a lot of lung injuries can occur that Siva, you touched upon that, barotrauma, volutrauma. Yeah, so that is also important. So the FiO2 also, we have to keep it minimum. We need not keep it 100% saturation all the time. So that also cause oxygen free radicals and cause injury to that. So, and there is a terminology you would have told about permissive hypercapnia. And we need not focus on the normal blood gas, just tide over the period and support the lung and come out. That's the main idea. And there are some questions. He's put some know your machine and why you are ventilating, what is your target, and stand by the side of the patient. Okay, that is very, very important. Thanks for reminding me. And thanks by the side of the patient. Look at chest rise, not only the numbers. Okay, you need to see the patients, not only the ventilation strategies, hemodynamics as well. So that's all very important. You guys can be in touch with us. We also are in the mission and peripheral hospital in supporting the initiation of ventilation and other aspects also. And I request Pragadish and Mandar to have the final word, please, before concluding remarks.
I thank Ebo sir for giving us this opportunity for moderating this wonderful session. And I thank Dr. Shiva Vyasam also. He made such a wonderful presentation, extensively explaining the concepts in simple terms where everyone can understand. So I hope this session will be useful for most of the pediatricians who has attended this. So thank you, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
So it was really nice to see you both, and Pragadish and Mandar. Nice to have this discussion as well. And as we were talking about the packed module, Pragadish only had the privilege of writing this basic ventilation. So it is apt that you moderated. And thank you very much for participating.